Well, good morning and happy Thursday. You're listening to Awesome Radio. You're listening to Real Talk for Real Men right here on Awesome Radio, 107.5 WECU. Also 15:7 AM, the 107.5 is FM. Thank you for joining in. And I'm Dan Lawson, pastor of the United Gospel Outreach Church in Kinston, North Carolina. And I have with me
Elder Nat Farrow from Kingdom of Heaven Ministries here in Greenville, North Carolina.
And we do thank you for joining in today. And hopefully we'll be able to say something that will be inspirational, encouraging, and upbuilding for men all over our listening audience. You're tuned in live. That's great. If not, this is a test that's recorded, and it'll be on Facebook for a long, long time. You can always go back, check it out on Facebook under Awesome Radio. You can also go to the Awesome Radio online, WBISAwesomeRadio.org. Again, thank you for being here, and we're getting ready to get started. Let's first bring in another guest. I think he's ready to come in with us.
Yes.
But Elder, you got anything before we get into our main topic? You got any hot news you want to consider for the first couple of minutes?
Welcome, Pastor Sanders.
God bless you. How y'all doing?
All right.
Good.
Well, I don't know. This is the time here. You know, we're a couple of weeks away from the end of the election.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
This is already voting. And
yes, sir, indeed.
in North Carolina, this is our first day of early voting.
Early voting, yes, it is.
I would encourage folk, you know, if you can make your way to the polls between now and the 5th, early voting is always good.
That's correct.
That's one of the things that I would want to start off encouraging folks.
Well, you know the way things are now, since a certain individual came on the scene, the election is not going to be over on November 5th. Everybody knows it.
Everybody knows that.
Unless he wins.
Unless he wins.
The voting will be, though.
The voting will be over, but the election will go on right
Amen.
up until somebody gets sworn in on January 20th. But we do what we do, and we let them take care of whatever they're going to do.
That's
but,
right.
It was terrible. It was terrible in 2020, and the nation looked real bad in the eyes of the world, and it has been looking bad ever since, because the situation never got totally resolved. It's still an issue, but I hope for the best for this time. But I'm not expecting any better.
I'm going to say this, though. It got resolved as far as the fact that the presidency did happen.
Oh, it happened.
The transfer of power happened. The guy that was fussing hasn't accepted that, but he knows that it happened.
But
He knows that it happened.
It's so bad. The reason it's so bad for America is because traditionally, as soon as the election is over and a new president has won, he gets access to the White House, and he gets access to what's been going on. So by the time he gets sworn in, he can hit the ground running. That didn't happen for Joe Biden.
That is true.
Right.
And some of that hurt his presidency real bad, like the whole withdrawal from Afghanistan thing.
Yes.
He didn't even know about that, or he may have heard it on the news, but he didn't have his hands on that until he got sworn in January.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they were withholding.
Yeah, so he had to walk in and learn, and by the time he learned, stuff was already happening. A withdrawal.
Yes, the deal had already been made.
Yeah, and it
Yeah,
was already
he
in
had to
process.
deal with it. You're
Okay,
right. You're
yeah,
right
so
about that.
that's real bad, and our allies, they know that. They understand how that works, and so when they see that not happening, that's scary to them, because we're supposedly the leader of the free world. We got all these NATO allies, and we over here dysfunctional.
Well,
Right.
I listened to listening to folks that I would let you pass it. I was listening to folks that that have gone overseas, and they'd be saying things like, "What's wrong with y'all?"
Yeah, what y'all doing over there?
Yeah. Make it look somewhat hypocritical, don't it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
But at least you know, and I'm not saying this on part. I just think it was good that VP came to Eastern North Carolina. I think a lot of times in Eastern North Carolina, we're not, you know, recognized. You know, a lot of
Right.
times, a lot of people come here and they go to Charlotte and, you know,
Mm-hmm.
Raleigh, but they don't come here. So I thought that was good, especially on the Democratic side. I know the other
Yeah,
side.
true that.
But
True
that's
that.
another
True that.
story. I ain't gonna,
Yeah.
I ain't gonna go deep. I ain't gonna dig into that.
So Pastor Sanders, last week
Yes, sir.
we were digging into family. We were talking
Right.
about family. In the midst of discussing family, the issue of men with blended families came up.
Right.
We kind of ended up on that note, so it was decided that we would restart that discussion
Okay.
this week,
Correct.
talking about men with blended families, and of course, a blended family is a family consisting of a couple and their children from their current marriage and all previous relationships.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Elder Farrow brought up mixed families also,
Correct.
which I think, even though they're different mixed families, is a race thing where different races come together
Mm-hmm.
and marry, and now you got a mixed, what you might call a mixed family. I think the issues for both are kind of parallel.
They
They
are.
have, they have the same kind of issues. A little different, but still kind of the same, as they try to make that marriage work and make
Mm-hmm.
it functional.
Right.
So let's start out with what is the problem. Now, first of all, let me just say that
Okay.
I've never been part of a blended family or a mixed family, but I have counseled men with both. I've counseled men with blended families. I've counseled men with mixed families, and the problems and issues that they have brings a lot of adversity, in their lives,
Yeah, it
both
does.
emotionally, financially, in a whole lot of other areas. It just brings adversity, especially when you're not prepared to deal with it. You didn't
Right.
come in, with the knowledge that these are some things that I'm going to have to face, and then all of a sudden it's all down upon you, and now you got to deal with it. It's like
Correct.
learning how to swim after somebody threw you in the water.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't get a chance
Yeah.
to go, the training and all that. Somebody threw you in the water, and all of a sudden, you know what? I got to learn how to swim. You're already sinking, and now you got to learn how to swim. So,
Right.
what's your relationship, Pastor Sanders?
Well, I've been through pretty much all of it, and I have a blended family right now as we speak. I wind up, or in the beginning, I have dealt with uh, biracial children because my wife used to run a daycare, and we saw some discrepancies within the biracial sect that parents was having difficulties getting along, and it's because of I want to say it because of we are in two different cultures, and every culture don't think alike. And I'm gonna just kind of fast forward to see. I have 3 kids that I adopted, and all of them was Caucasians, and they was at the age of 2, 5, and 6. That's what their age were. Now they 21 and 20 now, and the other one is 17. So I'm gonna have to plug this up. I'm bad about it. Go low. But I'm finding out over the years that some of the issues that comes up is when they get older. That's when they find out that things are really different. But most problem that we will have in the family is dealing with rules and regulations. That's where most conflict will come in at when it come down to rules and regulations. And not only that, when they get older, they begin to have this grievance against their parents, want to know why are they in a situation that they didn't ask to be in, and it caused some conflict of interest within and without. And then you have to go as further as visitations that come through that process, and that can bring about some serious conflicts when children are running from one home to the next home, dealing with maybe in some cases single parents, some cases both parents. Then you got 4 parents versus 1 parent on opposite ends, and sometimes we can't come together with the visitations. And even if it starts out good, it may not end up well. So that's one of the major, I would say, downfall of the whole situation. But it's still a lot of possibility in there where the outcome's still going to outweigh that.
Let me ask you a question. As a man with a blended and mixed family, you ever been to school and they were looking at you funny when you came to pick up your kids?
Oh yeah, and I experienced that throughout the whole process of the 18 years. Some people accept it as, oh my God, you're doing such a great children. A great thing with the children. They're so well mannered. I used to get so many compliments on the children that we reared up in this aspect, and some folks just look at you as if you don't supposed to have them. But if you think back, we were raising kids when my great-great-grandmother was alive. We raised the Caucasian persuasion families.
Yeah, my grandmother did too.
Yeah, we cooked for them. I mean, we washed clothes for them. And even with my mother in the 80s, or late 70s, early 80s, she was still babysitting, raising doctor kids and stuff, and cooking and carrying on. And so me and my wife picked up the same traits, and we've been raising other folk kids all our life. And we get those stereotype stares a lot of time, as some a lot of it was really good, and some was, one of them typical stare like, what you doing with them?
Yeah.
And and like we don't supposed to have them. But over the years, it's not as bad as it used to be. Folks don't care anymore because they know that these kids are falling by the wayside so fast and so bad, they need somebody to step in and role models. So now they not acting like that in some cases, because it's mostly that persuasion that is really out of balance with the home training, more so than the blacks are. And because it's a lot of white folks out of place, a lot of them, and they'll trust a black person to take care of their kids quicker than they would their own. I kid you not, because they know we ain't gonna harm them. We ain't gonna do no harm. Those are not our kids. We ain't gonna do harm. Now we might do harm to our own, but if you really look at it, we will not harm the other persuasion. We'll do what we can to take care of them. But I'm gonna tell you now, it's an uphill battle. I'm being honest on this radio station. It's not easy, but it's not impossible either to get them to a place where they should be.
So the kids that you raised, did any of them still have biological parents that were?
Yes, they do. As a matter of fact, they do.
With them.
Yeah, they have them. And my 17-year-old son, he's like, I don't want to meet him because there's some grievance there. He know his dad and his mom, but he got these mixed feelings because ever since he was 2, they never came around. They never called. They never did anything.
Okay, so we're having some difficulties with Pastor Sanders. What do you think, Elder Farrow? You and I, we don't have mixed children, we don't have mixed families, we don't have blended families, but I'm sure that both of us have been exposed to people who do. So.
Oh, absolutely. I think it's fascinating. I think his story there is fascinating too, because see, what's actually happening too is society is changing.
Yeah.
And a lot of the hateful folk are not keeping up with the society changing, but it's happening anyway.
Yeah.
And they can't do anything about it. And so, you know, and people are dealing with it differently. And one of the things that came to my mind as he was speaking there, you know, the people that try to divide us as people, I'm talking about as human beings,
yeah.
those people cause more problems than the issue of the people themselves. You understand what I'm saying?
Oh,
They're
yeah,
the
that
ones,
makes-
those
yeah.
people that are trying to divide, because actually it kind of makes me think of what King said in the letter to the Birmingham jail. He told the jailer, "Me and you should be on the same side." You know, pro folk is pro folk.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And people
Mhm.
are people. And it's just a certain segment in our society that they benefit from us being divided.
Mm-hmm.
I think there is a phobia there where people are afraid. Um, they have this inner fear that something is going to be taken away from them.
Right.
When they see mixed marriages, and they feel like they are losing something, and they feel. I often think about, you know, what if all kids were from blended families? Would that mean racial hatred and racial some of the racial problems that we have in a society would go away?
I, go ahead.
Go ahead,
I'm sorry.
Pastor. I
No,
was going
I,
to say this. Let me say this right quick
Okay.
in the middle of that answer there. My experience, this is an experience I had when my mother came and got me and took me to Bridgeport, Connecticut at 6. We moved into a neighborhood. This is 1960 we're talking. We
Yeah.
moved into a neighborhood that was mixed. You know, we were moving in, and you know, there was still folks. And I met a young white kid, a couple of doors down from me, and me and him became friends. We would play, you know, and I would go over to his yard, and my mother would tell me, coming from the
Mhm.
South End, the folks don't like you.
Be careful. Be careful.
But
Yeah.
then it was cool, and then we got into a kid scuffle. You know how we do it. Then his
Mhm.
mother said, "Don't come over here
Yeah.
no more."
Yeah.
And it got to the point that I want to make is that kids don't know.
Yeah.
Kids are taught stuff. We
Mhm.
they don't know this stuff. They see another kid.
Yeah.
And I don't know, maybe that, I don't know. But Pastor, go ahead. I need
Yeah.
to.
And you know, and I had those same incidents too. But I just wanted to say this, that people are taught to do certain things and to be a certain way, and some things are just familiarity, and some things just naturally built into the DNA. Because there are some people that are born to be warriors. There are some people that are born to be strictly praisers. There are some people that are born strictly to be eunuchs. Everybody have they different characteristics. Some people are born to be great sportsmen. If you look in the Roman days, there were people that were cut out to be gladiators. So what I'm saying is that every nation have a built-in identity to distinguish them from any other group. And this persuasion here is the type of people that feels that, how should I put it? They had to be superior in all things to feel good about themselves. I'm gonna put it that way because I've seen it over the years. And whatever it takes for them to feel better than the next man, then that's what they'll go along with. It's not fair, and and to me it's inappropriate, because see, we can take the ruling from both ends. It don't matter to us, you know, how you treat us. We can still come out as a forgiven nation. We
We're going
will
to take a break. And when we come back, we'll continue this discussion. You're listening to Awesome Radio, Real Talk for Real Men, 107.5 FM on your dial, 1570 AM, WECU. We're talking about blended families, mixed families, men with blended families, mixed families. And we'll be right back with this discussion.
Amen.
Hello, my name is Dr. Wiley Nifong. Thank you for listening to Awesome Radio, 107.5 FM, 1570 AM, WECU.
Here's a minute to inspire fresh hope in your busy day.
I'll have to admit, my natural tendency is to do anything to avoid conflict. Yet, as I think about the serious conflicts I've had in my own life, I see times of greater personal growth than if the conflicts hadn't existed at all. I became aware of lessons I needed to learn, not only about others, but more importantly, about changes that needed to be made in my own attitude and actions. Had everything been peaceful, I honestly don't believe I would have stretched my way of thinking or changed as I needed to change. Years ago, I heard this insightful statement: never to disagree at all is a sign not of love, but of indifference.
This Hope Minute was brought to you by Hope for the Heart. To learn more, go to hopeminute.org.
We all give back to our communities in various ways. Sunday, November 24th, 10 o'clock a.m. Greenville Community Christian Church, Pastor James D. and Lady Sarah Corbett warmly invites the community to a special day of giving service, Blessing the City. Sunday, November 24th, 10 o'clock a.m. There will be lunch served after the 10 o'clock a.m. service, and while supplies last, there will be food box giveaways, gift card giveaways, coat giveaways, and more. Blessing the City, a special day of giving service, Sunday, November 24th, 10 o'clock a.m. at Greenville Community Christian Church, 1104 North Memorial Drive, Greenville, across from the Pitt, Greenville Airport.
Hello, my name is Daniel from Greenville. We appreciate you for listening to Awesome Radio, 107.5 FM, 1570 AM, WECU Radio in Greenville.
Surely in the family, God is with me. Surely in the family, God is with me. Surely in the family, God is with me.
Okay, and we're back. We're talking about men with blended families. One of the things Pastor Sanders mentioned is that some kids in this day and time are still taught that they are superior to others because of skin color. I did a historic study on white supremacy, and what I found was that way back before America had actually been developed, before there was the United States of America, there were some European leaders that got together, and in their fellowship or in their meeting, they all agreed that God made Caucasian folks superior. One of the things that they used as evidence is they looked around at all the technology of that day, which we probably wouldn't call it technology, but this was way back in the 1500s, 1600s, way back in that day. Everything that was being invented, all of your, scientists and geniuses and so forth, in their opinion, were men of the Caucasian race. So they agreed and concluded that they were superior. And this started in Europe. So when you study Hitler, one of the things Hitler had anticipated when he started his, I guess you could call it a descendant of Aryan nations, when he started that, he thought, and he actually spoke to, was it Winston Churchill? He said, "You all ought to be with me." That's what he was telling them. He was going to be able to pull them in and say, "Look, we are the superior race." But of course, Europe and France, they didn't buy into it. The Italians did, and so it was the Italians in Germany. But that transcended over in the United States. They are people. That's why it was so easy for them to go to a nation of black people, and just take them. take their women, take their children with no conscience.
Right.
And then, they got that old biblical argument that descendants of Ham were made to be slaves anyway, but they just had that feeling. They were convinced that God did make them superior to other races. And I wonder if that's ever going to die out, because even in this country right now, we got people that what we call Nazis and Aryan Nation people and white supremacists and Ku Klux Klan. That's that same philosophy that came from Europe, where they feel that God made white men, blonde, blue-eyed people, are folks that are superior to all of the other races in the world.
Well, I love that, because what you just did was important. We need to know the history of how
some deep history,
how this thing started. And to add to that, first of all, they corrupted the scripture. The scripture doesn't say that. But anyway, to get to the other fact, when they imported it here to America, they created another part of that system with the indentured servants and the slaves to separate them. Because there were too many of them if they were together.
Yes.
And the rich folks that was doing it, I don't even know if it was so much the theory, but they used that theory to tell the poor white folk, I'm just going to break it down, poor white folk, you better than them because of the color of your skin.
Right.
And it's created this whole system behind that. And we're still dealing with it, but I guess we're at a place where we're kind of trying. I guess the way society has changed, trying to dig out of it, but it's still there. Vestiges of it are still there.
Yeah, that's why I still wonder, is mixed marriages. I know that there are a lot of black people as well as white people that don't think races should mix, but if they did, I mean, could it possibly be that what might be a solution to racism? I mean, I'm not suggesting people go out and intentionally, but the thing is, everybody would be vested in each other. Everybody's got grandkids, both colors. Everybody's got nieces and nephews that are black and white and Hispanic and whatever. Would that be a solution to the racial problem?
Yeah. If I would say this, Pastor, if it was not a spirit, I would say yes. But spirits live forever. That's why God said that I'm going to separate the wheat from the tare, the sheep from the goats, the believer from the non-believers, but flesh from the spirit. We all live together. But as long as it's a spirit, it's gonna remain valid. You can't get rid of it. That's got to be something that God gonna have to do himself. But we just gotta have to learn how to live with it. I say that to say this, and it because of one thing that rises this thing to its head is jealousy. We have done a lot as a black nation for this country, and a lot have been taken from us. See, I believe that as a culture, we are servants. And God say, who is the greatest in the kingdom? When the question was asked, who is the greatest in the kingdom? You know what God said? He who serves. Not the one who sat at the table to be served, but he that served is the greatest. So I looked at that scripture and then I said, that's why I believe it's so easy for folks to walk over us like they do, because we are servants. And you can learn a lot from being a servant more so than trying to be a master. Your eyes are blinded to a lot of things being a master because you have control and power and superiority. You're missing out on a lot of things in that position that is beneath you that serve more value than where you stand or where you sit. I would say that to say this here, that jealousy arise up in those peoples a lot. And they always want what you want. They keep up with the Joneses. They they buy things and to excel themselves above others, but they are in a lot of debt. We do a lot of spending, but we ain't in that kind of debt. But we do a lot of spending, but they're in debt. And that's why you'll see a majority of them, they can't handle it. You'll see them flying out the window, jumping out airplanes and everything. They can't take it. But I'm gonna get away from that because I don't want to stereotype anybody. But listen, the emotion in this mixed family is real. It's very real. And even you can raise these people up in your family. They could be jealous of the siblings that's in the house.
Yeah.
You see, then they can say, well, how come I can't get that and they getting it? And ain't you my mom and dad? They'll own you as long as you doing for them. But when they see it going the opposite way, they'll hurry up and tell you, you ain't my mom, you ain't my dad. So that's where that struggle comes in when they realize they is of a different culture, they is of a different color, and now all of a sudden they old enough to know that they can have resentment and have power too, all at the same time from the authorities. That is on their side. So I'm gonna let that rest right there.
Yeah, that's real true. And your experience can help out a lot. I was asking you to write down what it was. But your experience, it brings a lot of value to the table as far as an understanding of what's involved. Because there are more people now that's dealing with mixed families, blended families. And I thought about, the fact that people, if there are mixed marriages, that don't necessarily solve the division, because right now we have a division within Black people, light-skinned people and dark-skinned people. Right ahead,
No, when we come back, I
Okay.
want to explore that a little bit.
All right.
Yes. Yes.
So,
Okay.
So, yeah, I can appreciate your experience because,
Thank
there are a lot of people that probably could look to you and get an understanding of what works and what doesn't work when you're dealing with blended families, mixed families. But thanks to our audience for tuning in. You're listening to Awesome Radio. We'll be right back. Real talk for real men.
You're listening to Awesome Radio, WECU 107.5 FM, 1570 AM. Christian media with the spirit of excellence.
Silver Sisters United presents Senior Women's Fellowship Brunch, Saturday, October 26th. 12 noon to 2 p.m. at A Touch of God's Presence Ministry, 1300 Dickinson Avenue, Greenville, with our very own host, Mother Barbara Mitchell. The theme for this brunch is Where Are Your Weights? Senior Women's Fellowship Brunch, presented by Silver Sisters United at A Touch of God's Presence Ministries, 1300 Dickinson Avenue, Greenville. Saturday, October 26, 12 noon to 2 p.m. For more information, dial 252-695-9007. That's 252-695-9007. Or visit the website, atouchofgodspresence.org.
Hi, hope you're having a wonderful day. My name is Apostle Dana Lynn Edwards. I am here to invite you to a new show every Saturday at 2:00 p.m. It is Ask the Pastor. You can ask questions that have always been on your mind about your Bible and your walk with Jesus. Looking forward to you joining us every Saturday at 2:00 p.m.
How should a church or ministry handle what are called designated gifts? Stay tuned.
Tough questions, reliable answers. That's the Legal Alert with attorney David Gibbs Jr. of the Christian Law Association.
Pastor Roy wasn't quite sure what to do when a wealthy member of the church told him he was going to make a $5,000 donation to the church that was intended to assist a family in the church that was in need. While the donation was, of course, incredibly kind, the man asked for a donation receipt for his taxes. Could the pastor give a receipt since the funds were intended for the family and not the church? He called us at the Christian Law Association to get our input. Our attorneys informed Pastor Roy that it would not be wise to provide a donation receipt for an unsolicited donation intended specifically for an individual and not for a nonprofit organization. There can be ways for the church to do fundraising for people in need, but this particular gift could not be treated as a donation. Remember, designated gifts are not tax deductible in most instances.
If you've got a legal question, why not connect with us online at christianlaw.org. You'll find legal brochures, case updates, our e-alert newsletter, all at christianlaw.org.
Hi, my name is Tracy. Thank you for listening to Awesome Radio, 107.5 FM, 1570 AM, WECU.
Surely in the family, God is with me. Surely in the family, God is with me. Surely in the family, God is with me.
Okay, and so we're back. Real Talk for Real Men on Awesome Radio, 107.5 on your FM dial, 1570 on your AM dial. We're back in our last session, and we're talking about blended families. And I'm going to read out some issues that I discovered about blended families. But first, I'm going to let Elder, you got a comment or question from?
Yeah, I did. From what you, your initial question there about if we all just kind of, intermarried and did all that, but we've been forced into that anyway through slavery, because we now have a lot of those family members that have come from that through, what has happened, the rapes and the, things that happen through slavery. And I see it in my family, when we have family, we got all shades of folk,
Yeah.
So it's really, I guess they didn't intend it to be that way, but it's it's happening anyway. So, I just wanted to kind of throw that in there and just say, a lot of things that was planned is not working out the way it was planned.
So we are more, you might say that we have the kind of experience that put us in a better position to deal with it than what the what others might have. But you're right, we all in sections of the family, so we're used to it. But let me just read off men who are part of blended families could be that blended family could have as many as four parents involved. When there are children from separate relationships, they could be as many as four parents involved, and then a whole slew of grandparents and aunts and uncles that all come together as a village around that child or those children. And so here's some of the issues that automatically arise from a situation like that. And this is what a lot of men, or men and women, of course, are dealing with. First of all these parents, but are they on the same page? As far as what they want for the kids, and all of them are going to feel like they have a say. And so, a man that's trying to raise a family and he has a blended family, then he has to deal with what other people want for his kids, or what other people want for her kids, who is now your kids because of marriage. Some other issues is you can't continue, once you get into a blended family situation, you can't expect that things are going to continue as they always were. Things are going to change. Not realizing sometimes men or women don't want to accept the ex as a part of the family. Just because you divorce or separate or move on, when there are children involved, that ex is still a part of the family. You might not want them to be. You might wish they'd go away somewhere, but no, they're still a part of the family. And then sometimes there's the issue of, I married you and you already had a child, but you don't want me to be that child's parent. That child gonna be living in the house with me, but I can't be that child's parent. I can't discipline the child. I can't, that's one of the issues that you have in blended families. And not preparing your children for the outside world. You can't just let your kids go off to school, go to the mall, and not make them aware of some of the things that they could possibly face. They need to know that they don't need to be blindsided. Not recognizing the rivalry that could appear between the children. They got different parents living in the same household, but got different parents. There could be some rivalries. Not being able to give each child equal attention. I never believed that, you hear people say, I treat all my children the same. I never believed in that. That's not true. You can't treat children the same. You got to treat children based on who they are. They're not the same. Children are not the same, so you can't treat them the same.
Amen.
But I know what people mean when they say that. I think I know what they mean, but it's just not a true statement. You don't treat all your children the same. You treat them based on their needs. And one of the problems in blended marriages is, not being diligent enough to make sure you give equal attention or enough attention, not equal. Equal is a bad word. Enough attention to each child, based on their needs. And not explaining the situation to the children. Sometimes you do things, you do what you want to do. I'm going to leave my husband. I'm going to marry somebody else. My wife, I'm going to marry somebody else. And you just do it. The child is never a part of the conversation. And that can be a bad thing. Depending on the age of the child and their level of understanding, sometimes that child needs to be a part of the conversation. Not recognizing the trouble that goes along with being a parent in a blended family, not realizing the adversity that your children are going to face, not realizing that it's going to take some work to make this family functional, and not understanding that your family now is different from what it was before you became a blended family. So I'm sure, Pastor Sanders, you could relate to a lot of those issues, and maybe every family don't have all those issues, but I'm sure that every blended family has some of those issues, and the priorities or the level of adversity from those issues could be different. But
yes,
give us some comments. You ran into any of these?
Yes, I have, and in most cases, every last one of the things that you read take place in the households. I was just doing some reading earlier, and it's said that out of the diverse family, you have a 41% divorce rate of people who married the first time, and then those that get married for the second time have a much higher divorce rate of 60%. That's a lot of displacement when it comes down to children have to go through.
Let me ask you something real quick. There's one part of that I never heard before. So you're saying that people get married the first time.
Mm-hmm.
Divorce rate is 50%.
About 41%. That they said that the divorce rate is within that area. So if they do it again,
get a chance to do it again,
the rate become higher.
Do it right this time.
Yeah, and it's even higher because if nothing changes, nothing changes. Yeah. And I've seen it over 18 years that when we try to get families that we are raising their children, we try to get those families to move to a certain place so they can receive those children when they get older or get grown. And so, but what happens is, if you don't change the status quo that got you in that place the first time, to me, that's just like the first divorce. So we give you a lot of time to redo it again. I would consider that being the second marriage. But if you don't get that marriage right, when it comes time to them kids be ready to return home, they're going to face another divorce because you have not solved that issue that started out in the first place. And this is the same process that we go through with children when those parents don't want to change. They just want to have some say-so within the lives of their children when they with someone else. They don't want to change nothing. So those divorce rates is tremendously high. And that's why you see a lot of single parents today, because nobody really want to settle down, and a lot of them don't want to settle down and do it as a two-party system. They rather do it by themselves so they can have more freedom. But that ain't really the way it should go. If you want success to come out of a family, you have to give up some things, man. You got to be versatile in a lot of things. And so, and when those children see that and they get the place, now they can come between those two parents. If you ain't careful, they tap a home. And you wonder why you getting divorced. And this wasn't like that before you, until you had them kids come in your house. So you got to walk this fine line. And that's why I say a lot of times, it goes that way. And it goes that way even with your own siblings sometimes, when they want to bring mama up against the dad and the dad up against the mother, favoritism all in the place. You better not hit my son where he my son too. You better not do this to my daughter where she's my daughter too. And that thing, them two fighting. And that thing, they dispersed and going on back. They've been, and now the kids got to deal with what left. So it's traumatizing in a way. But then again, it do have some benefits, because like you were reading earlier, the kids get to have more of a role model. They get to have more grandparents. They get to learn about diversity from other sides.
Is that a good thing because they have more grandparents?
Yeah, it is. Because see, you networking now. You can get, and not only for the kids, for your sake too, because you can get burnt out with this stuff.
Yeah,
you're gonna need somebody that you can cling to too, just to make it through the day with all of this stuff. So I'm saying that, but yeah, you are right. All these things happen, and all of them can happen at one time. Some of it spaced out to give you a little break. But now, like I said, I'm gonna come down to visitation rights. You got to be responsible for setting this in course. Yeah, and then you got to take these people, and some of them can't. Sometimes you got to sit there with the parents. Is that fair to the parent that you got to sit there with them? And that's the way the system got it set up in some cases, for you not to leave those children alone with their parents. You got to sit there with them through the whole process. And those parents feel in a certain kind of way when you are there. So they can't talk to them in privacy. They can't activate with them in privacy, because that's how the ruling was. You can visit them, but you can't take them by themselves. In some cases, you can keep them on the weekend. That's not cool for a child.
Let me jump in for a minute, because something came to my mind. I didn't even realize it as we were talking, that I was part of this thing. My mother was a single parent when she came and got, and I spent my younger years after 6. She came down south here and got me, as it was just me and her. When she moved to New York, she got married. And I was 13 years old. And the brother was of Caribbean descent, and he was from one of those strict household deals. And I had to go through this thing where he stepped in and wanted to discipline me. And that didn't quite work, because at the age I was, I knew he wasn't my father.
Right.
And so we had that. She had to stay in between us. She kind of worked that out. You know what I'm saying? Because, he just, I think he came in wrong, a little too hot. You know what I'm saying? Instead of befriending me, he kind of came in with the stick. And so throughout that time, as a matter of fact, throughout the time before I left and went in the military, we had that thing going on, And I talked to an old Barbadian woman, mother of the church, and she told me something that I hadn't thought about. And she said, a lot of people from her area of the world don't accept children from that are not theirs biologically. And I said, oh, okay, because it made me understand where he was coming from. You see what I'm saying? So a lot of things go into this relationship thing that you know, that a lot of times we don't see it because of the way people are brought up and the way that they handle. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I mean, he had a daughter with mom, and you know, my sister, you know, that was a whole different thing. But with me, it was kind of a little, it was rough. So I had to deal with that.
Sound like it could be pretty awkward.
Yeah, it can be.
But, Pastor, you said something earlier. You talked about how, you know, when the person is in one marriage situation and divorce, and then they don't really resolve the issues of that divorce. What caused it? What was the root cause? They go to another marriage and they find out that they are still the problem, or at least part of the problem. Anyway, you know, when people get married, you know, there's just so much, even in the vows, even if you don't get good counseling, the vows themselves pretty much tell you that this is going to be something that you got to think about this.
Yes.
Become one. You know, just think about that. Two become one. You were one, and he was one, and now y'all gonna come together and be one. That means somebody's gonna have to give up something. And it seems to me that a lot of people, when you hear people talk about their marriage problems, it kind of sounds like they just weren't prepared for this, or they weren't informed, or even though somebody informed them, they did not commit. You know, women going into marriage thinking that they're gonna change the man. I know he's different, but you know, he's gonna change. He's gonna be just what I want him to be. Or and the opposite, men thinking that he's gonna be able to change the woman into what he want her to be. And then later when they find out they can't do that, now we're getting ready to run. We're not gonna work it out. We just gonna leave.
Right.
Yes, sir. Elder.
No, I wanted to say, I this whole conversation has gone with marriage, and when I brought up my situation, there was no marriage involved, and a lot of times men may marry a woman that already has children. That has nothing to do with a marriage. They could be born outside of a marriage.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? So there's different aspects to it.
Oh, yeah.
I just wanted to throw that in there.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. And so really, when I say marriage, I'm really talking about relationships. But I say marriage because I guess that's the more acceptable, you know, kind of relationship that we want to deal with. But it's relationships in general. You know, people are in a relationship and they're not committed, and they have children. And when you get in a relationship and you get to the point where you're going to have children, then there still should be a commitment, even though you don't go through no marriage vows, because now children are involved. And when children are involved, there needs to be a structured family.
Right.
So now you're in a situation where children are involved. You really need to be committed. And if the two of you have not gone through a phase where y'all have worked out your differences, and you know, I know who you are now, you know who I am, you know what, you know, ticks me off, I know what ticks you off, we can survive. It seems to me, based on the information you provided earlier, Pastor Sanders, that maybe folks need to work harder at their relationships and not be so quick to run.
Right.
Because it's not necessarily going to get easier once you start.
Right. And it's not, Pastor, because see, you don't have to be married to have the same outcome that you're getting now. You can be married or not married. You still gonna get the same, like I said, outcome because of the fact that emotions is intact. Now, when you're dealing with emotions, they can go the distance, man. I declare they can go the distance. And then not only that, when you were saying earlier, a lot of things are not discussed with children when you have divorces. And now you're going to have grievance later that somebody got to reckon with. And if a child got all of that within them, and then they're jealous on the other front, when all those three elements comes together, you're going to think that child need to be on Ritalin or something. Because, I mean, their energy is going to be so high, you're not going to want to deal with it. And it's only because they got all this resentment Well, not only you, they love you, but it shows out with you, and then the hating parents that they haven't really not hardly ever seen before over a period of time. And then they got to deal with that because they're getting old enough now that they got to face that one day. And they're trying to figure out how they're going to face that enemy.
To the conclusion of the whole matter, we only got 40 seconds left.
Oh, wow. Oh, Jesus.
The conclusion of the whole matter is that we just need to do it God's way. There's a reason that God recommended marriage.
Yes.
There's a reason. And there's a reason that he frowns on divorce.
Yes.
He frowns on divorce. There's a reason. There's a reason that God wants a man and woman to come together and be as one and be partners for life to death. Do it part. You know, there's a reason for that.
True that. It is.
When we look at all these issues, then we begin to understand, okay, that's why we needed to stay together.
Yes, true that.
Real Talk for Real Men on Awesome Radio 107.5. We'll see you next week.
God bless you.